Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. But getting back into the swing of things here, we've been playing Death Stranding. If you've been following my work on that over the last week or so, I think I put about 6.5 hours in. And before I'm gonna have time to step back into that, maybe midweek this week, and put some more time into decoding that, I kind of wanted to do an interlude, as it were, and talk about where we are so far, what we know. Because I did a really quick decode in between sessions. It might have been, I should have checked before I started recording here, but I think it was even between episodes 7 and 8 on my channel, where I started to see some stuff that I hadn't before. As it relates to the serpent, as it relates to the riddle of Adam and Eve in the Bible, because that's all tied up in the Kundalini energy that we know, the twin snakes, the serpent, the trick of materialism, to care more about, to forego your spirituality for materialism, and what being a man, the number of man, 5, is truly all about. And that brings us kind of into the suppositional theories that I had coming into the game, Death Stranding, in fact, where, of course, in my work for the past with the weeks leading up to the game's release, I had some curiosities around its release date, its release date in congruence with the movie Doctor Sleep on the same day on November 8th. And just in general, some of the themes that Death Stranding seemed to portray right out of the gate, which are kind of prescient, and as we go through and find out what exactly is going on with the V steganography, V for 5, V is in Victor, the Roman numeral for 5, and what we're seeing in the game as it relates to that. Because I've said it before, I'll say it again, the Dark Journalist, DJ the Dark Journalist, you can find him easily on YouTube, covers everything you could possibly want to know in an ongoing investigation about X steganography. And I guess it's, by definition, probably not everything you want to know, because it's an ongoing investigation. Taking an archaeologist's journalistic approach to uncovering what this is all about, he's worked directly beside and interviewed Graham Hancock about all that stuff. And I'm now starting to see the congruence of the V steganography, which is mostly the UFO file stuff, and the V steganography, which I think is the occlusive or occluded layer of the UFO file on top of it, but it's the religion piece. Kind of like, so we've seen with the bondages in the Death Stranding game, which I've related back to the Devil card, which is X and V. I think both of them are the aspects that bind us to the mind control, and through memes and thought contagions, like we've talked about on this channel before too, playing games like Death Stranding, it's just the occult. It's occulted right in front of us, and most are unable to decode it. I've been exhausted playing this game too. There's partially I haven't gotten back into it after putting 6 hours. Because anymore with playing video games, when I know what's going on and I know what the mind control is relating with, the internet went out, but I guess it doesn't really matter because I'm uploading this to YouTube afterward anyway. Please forgive me if I've got to splice together some of the internet footage, and I guess I'll watch it to make sure it comes back on. But what I can tell you is, of course, in a lot of the other videos we've covered on my channel, this photo here is representative of the gods, the gods of old in the Old Testament, where the knowledge has been kept, and this is all part of the Serpent riddle, part of the 5 riddle. And so some of the things, getting back to the point about the Death Stranding experience, because it's been so exhausting just to stave off the weird energies that you get from playing a game like this, or any video game for that matter, I guess, is that I'm hyper aware of what's happening with the game as we're going about it. And as I've already identified, I think correctly, I think it's pretty indisputable, at least to my understanding of what we're going through in the game, is that we're living through an experiential metempsychoses of the character that Norman Reedus is playing as Sam in the video game. And there's some weird things about this because he's picking up karma along the way, and we've got the Bridges Corporation that he's enlisted himself as a part of, which I've took a screenshot of a previous video that I'd done. Looks a lot like Florida Maki's DC Parasite Network, which is what we're calling this. And of course, with the V steganography again, Hideo Kojima's last game, Metal Gear Solid 5 with a V, had vocal cord parasites, which they were inflicting bad language memes on the unsuspecting soldiers in the game, hijacking their language, which is a total symbolism, so a total symbolic representation, rather, of the Tower of Babel incident. And man, that's a deep thing to go into, and I'll probably do that, just like I want to do the Half-Life, dig into that with the Lambda signatures on this, because again, Lambda is the upside down V, the thing I think they're misappropriating, just like the DC control grid, right? Let's just get our terms correct. And similar to the way they've turned the penta, the 5, the pentagram, turned it upside down, the pentagon, from which this Earth grid network is controlled by and hacked into. I'm only assuming the minds, and maybe this game is telling us, and this is just me saying, spitballing, that the DC Parasite Network is now attempting, and maybe successfully, to manipulate the mind in the metempsychoses, the life between lives, the death experience of going through your karma and burning it off. So anyway, we're connecting east to west, we're connecting this control grid, which of course I've also stated reminds me a lot of 5G. And there's some sort of blood connection and of course, twin snakes Kundalini representation with also the structure of the DNA, which we're seeming to have to give up as the character Sam in this game for some sort of agenda, which almost seems like 23andMe or the Ancestry.com thing of collecting data. And even I noticed last week tonight, the HBO show last night just did a whole propaganda piece on Census Bureau. You have to submit your data to the Census Bureau, and they did the classic representational pit this against that argument here, where they're trying to demonize a lot of the things that the libertarian crowd, they picked a really stupid libertarian to represent, in fact, to make everybody look foolish for not wanting their information to be all out there. But I digress on that a little bit. This is what Sam's going through. The karma process of resolving his karma, to raise his consciousness, to download into a new soul, a new vessel, the baby, the BB that represents that's represented by him carrying it around. At the end of the last stream, we were just starting to also talk a little bit about portals. Stargates might be another way to look into this. But honestly, it was really, really funny, because one of the other people on YouTube that I follow and respect her work very much, because she coined, this is her, Gigi Young, she coined a term I love called fast food spirituality. And that there's so many people on YouTube doing the tarot, doing the astrology, doing all this crap, and it's really pushing them further away from their true spirituality. And she goes into some awesome topics, and she did one on portals right around the time the video game came out, in fact, which is just too funny of a synchronicity. Because remember, we'd already also tied the lambda, the upside down V, and all of that stuff into the Valve steganography with V as well, because the Portal video game, Valve, V, the orange box, which if we're going back to, of course, here, the orange box, which Half-Life, Portal, these games were all released with, matches up with the Clockwork Orange Lambda by Stanley Kubrick, also the director of The Shining, which, coming back full circle again, Dr. Sleep is the sequel to. So you're seeing round and round and round we go. It all connects this ridiculous mind control web. And as you guys have seen in the Death Stranding screenshots, and also in my previous videos, all of the different, symbolism with some of the World War II stuff that they're starting to get into, with the web of reality that's being warped here, or whatever. But even the Bridges logo, if you just go back to that, that's probably the better. The web of lies. Anyway, Monster Energy. I want to hard stop, kind of get through a couple more concepts before I love you guys and leave you again, and over the next couple days get back into getting my mind around playing this game. But what we talked about, and the best way I can pull up now, because I found actually somebody who'd already done a lot of this work, Derek, actually, who created the Gematrinator calculator, was one who, which we'll go over in a sec, I selected some words, actually had all this stuff brilliantly laid out. I found him after I was on the channel talking about it in the last episode, and of course, Monster, the energy drink, lines up with the VAV character of the Hebrew alphabet, Vav. It's the 6th letter, so one can interpret this. Oh, geez. Something's going on here with Adobe that I gotta close down. Sorry about this. I just updated all my cloud apps, and now for the last day, Adobe has been saying all my stuff is out of date. I've got to look into that. Anyway, apologies for that. You've got to look into this and look at, as of the 6-letter alphabet, one can interpret it because this is 3 Vavs, 666. Also ties directly into the knowledge of the Kundalini, because this is representative of that number, and that's ultimately my supposition too. Why the elite have bastardized the number 666, because it keeps you away from knowing both the true history for the riddle of Adam and Eve and what you can do about it. So you'll also notice the palindrome addition signatures here. If you type in, of course, into Gematria, one is A, 2 is B, C is 3 for English ordinal. For reverse, you do the opposite. Z is 26 all the way for A is 1, or A is 26 all the way through Z is 1. And then you've got other main ones that follow the orders of the rules of numerology. I've gotten a bunch of them out here. I've gotten GLaDOS typed in for the Portal video game I'll share in a second. But for one, I want to get back to the Monster Energy drink, because this is what you're drinking for your sustenance in this game. It's almost like you're nourishing yourself with the 666 energy. I don't know if this is a double entendre yet. Again, I'm really trying to figure out if Hideo Kojima is a good guy or bad guy ultimately. But anyway, the Kundalini, the Serpent tie into this. 5, of course, we've got the number of man. Vav is the Hierophant tarot card. That's the other thing that was interesting when I started looking into this, is the Hebrew language each character has an equivalent in tarot. And Vav just so happens to be the equivalent of the 5 Hierophant. The V steganography, and of course, I'll read straight out of the interpretive manual here for both this one and actually the Devil card I'll read to you as well, just so we get the understanding. The themes and concepts: organizations, institutions, spiritual authority and memory, traditional teachings and convention, revelation of the sacred, knowledge and book learning, priesthood, history and learning of the past. So they're controlling, in my opinion, I think that's what the V steganography is. Like I said, if X steganography is UFO file, V is the veiled religious institution on top of it to blind you away from it, I think, and to shackle you to another false reality. That's the Devil card. Another couple things that we didn't point out a couple videos ago when I first introduced this Hierophant card is, if you look on his lap, he's got a lamb, kind of like Lambda, the upside down V. If we're going back to the Lambda signature of the Half-Life game, it's just so funny, guys. And then City 17, I want you guys to remember, City 17 was the name of the Citadel organization from the second game where this dystopian future was playing out. Because, of course, I'm going to go phone call here. Oh, I've got a bunch of them coming in. Just a second, guys. Let that play out, because nothing I was going to do was going to get me to one of my other desktop screens to see who was calling. Sorry about the other interruption. Mercury retrograde's real, and I continue to experience weird stuff. Anyway, the Lambda complex. Oh yeah, City 17 is what we're talking about, because that actually has everything to do with Q. So we'll get to that in a second. But before the mind control of the metempsychoses, the lambda also kind of keeping you as a sheep in the lap of the military, of the religious establishment, of all that stuff. So kind of interesting that all this stuff ties in. And of course, 234 is going to be one I want you to remember, and 99 is going to be one I want you to remember, because using rules of numerology, 1 plus 8, or excuse me, 18 is 9 plus 9. 18 reduces to 9 in the rules of numerology as well. But you can do this back out method to get 666 as well, almost like factorials in math. This is just how the ciphering works for gematria. So when we're coming over here to this section where I've already entered in a bunch of like terms, because these are kind of all the things that some of the nouns that we've been discussing on the channel. And we've got GLaDOS now from the Portal game, and V for Vendetta, and Q, and Q-Pid. Q-Pid was the concept of the thing around the necks of these porters in the, maybe I should put porter in here as well. The porters, which are the guys that are carrying the, which Sam is ultimately in the game, I guess. But anyway, if anybody's curious about how gematria truly works, we kind of introduced this in a previous video with 113 being kind of a, I got a different color here for my highlighter. There we go. Be able to see everything that much better. So 113, of course, if you go back to the previous work I referenced on Zach Hubbard's page, it equals lie, mainstream, bullshit, disinfo. So right away, you can kind of see the Shining had something to do with bullshit, lie, and if you look at how inextricably tied to the moon landing all that stuff was, that's where the 113 comes in with the Shining. So there's the cipher. That's kind of the trail you follow. You also look, I told you, remember the 17. 17 equals God, equals dog, equals Q, 17th letter of the alphabet. It's tied to karma, which has a value of 17, which we're carrying around the representative forms of in the game, as Sam with these boxes. But then you go to Monster Energy Drink, right? The 234, these are the numbers we carried over. And the 234 also has representation in Death Stranding itself. And of course, 63 is a curious one, because this is the inverse of the 36, which is a triangular number, equals 666. Because what you do with 36 is if you go 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10 all the way through 36. So add all those values to 36. What you end up getting is 666, 666. So 36 has a relationship to 666. 234, 432, being additions of each other in palindromes, perfect palindromes, adding together to 666. These have a resonant quality. I hope you're understanding a little bit how this works. This is how the ciphering method works, and different words are tied to different phrasings and different things, but this is generally the practice that it was ancient, it's been carried forward, and maybe we'll get into more of this stuff in the future, but truly Zach Hubbard is the guy to follow as it relates to kind of learning how to use this stuff, because he's doing it on easier things to follow, like the main headlines and the sports stories that are rigged and all that stuff. I want everybody to briefly take note of this video as well by Cliff High, because this video was actually done in response to Bix Weir's son committing suicide, which is pretty apparent. He doesn't outrightly say that, but Bix Weir being another one of my favorite YouTubers, and somebody whose researches I cherish greatly on the financial system, going through a particularly rough time, and kind of what life sensitivity is, and then also what metempsychoses is a little bit into the afterlife process. Cliff's done many videos on that. I recommend you go to this. Also released, funny enough, the same day as Gigi did hers, and they're absolutely related, because honestly, all of Cliff's critical thinking videos that you can absorb are going to be good in the times to come, because as we continue to pick this apart, Q is back. I think by no coincidence, right around the time all this Q stuff, even around the video game, is spawning up, how the 17's related back through the lambda, back through the V, back through, it's all V steganography. And so, are these guys still here on the planet? Are they few? Are they still controlling us via this Earth grid control network we've talked so much about? That's where my current understanding is. One thing that we can also track and gain some power back to, by the way, is using the Greek hyperbolic disk. I don't know if we've ever touched on this, but catastrophe cycle. This is kind of how you've got to believe the Mayans also had all this knowledge about what might be clicking into place in 2012, the potential that we're now in. You can also track the magnetic energies via this drought clock, which corresponds to the Greek hyperbolic disk, which is a 4D representation of, and it's an interdimensional object, I guess you could say, that it was conceptualized by philosophers that didn't even have digital forms of communication like we did. So I might be sputtering out here a little bit. I do know that I wanted to close this thing as it relates to Q, because Q seems to be tied to this V steganography and the Hideo Kojima game, Death Stranding. Hideo Kojima's start, of course, came with Metal Gear Solid, the tactical espionage action video game. Is this something that we're kind of experiencing related to this? Absolutely, I think. What it is, I don't know yet. I truly don't. I haven't thought on it long enough. My mind's been preoccupied with just decoding stuff so far. It's been very surface level, as you can see. We're still coursing through the games to kind of figure out what all this stuff means. We've covered the Twin Snakes Shadow Moses incident that's covered in the first video game, where we get this moniker of tactical espionage action. And that's going to be somehow, as it relates to us sneaking around these BTs, of course, the psychic ghostly beings in the video game. So 2 more points I'm going to leave on before we close out this video, and I kind of, like I said, love you and leave you, and over the next couple days get back into playing Death Stranding, is Q-Pid. Since Q-Pid is also how they're representing Q in Death Stranding, we're also going to look into Q-Pid, the Greek god, because we've looked into EOS, the Greek god, before. This is EROS with an R. EROS is also what Cupid's, it's a, how do you say, pseudonym or alternate ego? No, I don't think it would be that way. But anyway, Cupid, I really wanted to point out, was the youngest of these daughters of a king, as the story goes, and her name was Psyche. The Psyche, right? She was so beautiful that many began to consider her the epitome of love and beauty rather than Venus. Okay, so now, remember, Venus, V steganography. Venus represents Jesus. Jesus the Christ, Christ the Merkaba, right? And gosh, I hope I still have my the 8th sphere deal up here. Yeah, okay, 8th sphere, right? The 4th sphere, the Christ center, the Merkaba, which the Earth has an energy field that expands from. We are being hijacked and put back into the Saturn energy, the dense energy, the material, and we're being prevented from moving on. These are the things that we've talked about so far. And if we go back to this, it's more beautiful than Venus. So basically how I interpret this is Venus, the spiritual, the connection to Christ consciousness, the connection that Jesus had come back to teach humanity about again, is being diverted away from. We're not learning about the Venus energy. Because why? Because the love and the beauty, the vanity of the things that the other daughter has to consider are being put into play. This, not that. This, not that. Misdirection. Isn't that what Q is? Q-Pid? I wonder if there's something to it, right? I certainly think there is. We go on and it says, Venus becomes jealous and asks Cupid to take action. She told him to shoot Psyche with an arrow to make her fall in love with a monster. Monster energy. And if the monster energy, of course, is knowledge, to fall in love with knowledge, or the result of knowledge, right? If monster is going to be the serpent the Serpent decode, which is going to be, in this case, as we've backed out, to mean knowledge. Fall in love with knowledge. Anyway, Q-Pid agreed, but sent out, the arrow fell to the ground, not before it pricked Cupid's foot, instantly falling in love with Psyche. So what we're hearing is it's so easy to succumb to the mind control that controls the psyche, just by pricking Cupid's foot, by injecting into his roots, basically. That's the human root system. If you look at the veins, how they're structured around in the foot and the veins, it's the uptake. And so, yes, we're antennas from here, but we uptake information from the roots. And just like the Earth grid control network, if you can gain control of a harmonic grid structure, the crystalline structure of the Earth, I wonder if the magnetic energies that they're pushing into this grid network can come right through the foot of the individual. I wonder. These are the things I think about too. I don't have any way to prove these, but what I always say to that is Nikola Tesla never had a way to prove his thoughts either. We do have to put them into practice eventually in some sort of an experimental way in order to bring the most around. But if we all remember this as we continue to go through this, we'll have faith in uncovering this riddle. A lot of this has to do, going back to EOS, being the man boy, lust after lover, basically the pedophile god. And please watch this Open Secret movie as it relates to Steem. Steem, the cryptocurrency. How Steem relates to Steam, the video game platform, which Valve, the corporation in Seattle, sells all its video games through. And what do we know about Dr. Sleep? But the psychic children, the activated, probably you could call them autistic children with all this potential, are getting their steam, their essence, sucked dry from these vampire creatures. And it's the pedophile network. It's a representation of the pedophile network. And Mark Collins, rector, who is on the run from the law, and I've pulled up, thanks to Bixweir again, the guy I mentioned earlier, this is part of his research. All the credit goes to him for finding this out originally. The patent that Mark Collins, rector, has for the very YouTube platform that we're using right now. And I'll leave it there for you to kind of speculate on some of the Jeffrey Epstein stuff that's coming out lately and how YouTube's rules and terms and policies are changing on December 10th, and much more to come on this stuff. Once I figure out how to talk about it more fluidly, without it's not like I'm worried about becoming a target or something, but I definitely don't want to trigger the system in the wrong way to where we're no longer able to discuss these topics even that we talk about. Anyway, probably not going to happen because this is a small audience, small crowd, but you get the drift. More to come on Death Stranding. That's kind of what I've got right now. One more thing. Bird Box. Where did I put the link for Bird Box, the film Bird Box? The way that we're interacting with the BTs, the ghosts in the network, I just wanted to also point out really quickly how much it measures up to the plot of Bird Box, where it's not sound that the other beings are the spirit beings or whatever they are. In this case, they have even a name for it. Supernatural entities, they just call them malevolent supernatural entities. They connect consciousness by eyesight and make the person insane and want to commit suicide. So they have to go through this whole story with Sandra Bullock being blindfolded with these two children, maybe representing psychic children, maybe not, but not being caught by the pseudo BTs that they're experiencing, just not activating by sound. And they've got these birds, kind of like the canary in the coal mine thing, that they use as warnings. But there's something to this as well, because as you'll find out here, 83, Sandra Bullock, Bird Box is 38. These are killing numbers. This is like the ritualistic killing number. Murder by numbers was also this correlation credit must once again go to Zach Hubbard, the expert on this topic. But yeah, the murder by numbers. If you look at the the cover. If I can get the cover pulled up. Here we go. See how the E is the reverse 3 and the 2 B's are turned into 8s. Murder by numbers, the police, if you enter, all that stuff has gematria that shares in values. You know, the murder by numbers song by the police, easy as 1, 2, 3. That's all tied into these 83 reverse through 38 values. Like I was saying, the reverse inverse of 36 being 63 has significance too. Same with 81, 18. 47, 74 is going to be a very Masonic number, in fact, for many reasons. But just not going to go into that stuff today. We're going to leave it there, kind of close it down on the topic we opened up with. Themes for the game, X and V steganography may be coming into play with Death Stranding, and we'll continue onward with it later this week. If you like this work, let me know. If you don't, let me know too. But we'll see you soon.